Call. Two men. One named Rich. That's me.
This is Jermaine. Just got off the toilet.
He's a foul man. This is the X's and O's of life.
Huh?
I feel bad for the guests that come onto this show and they see that intro and they're like, what did I get myself into?
So I do this for a living. You got to understand that I podcast for a living. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I do it in a very professional manner. And I love your intro because I will never get to be able to do that.
Oh, well, thank you. My name is Rich, like you all saw, and I have a guest, and his name is
Ryan Shear. Look, I got a bunch of extra syllables in that name that doesn't need to be used, but it is Ryan Shear.
I mean, I was gonna go Ryan Shear.
Look, the story behind the story. We left like in 1820. My mom did all this shit. I don't know, but in 1820 we left New York as a Jewish people, and we started marching across the country, and we made it to Missouri. And by the time we got to Missouri, we were Pentecostal farmers. I don't know what the hell happened on that trip, but my name changed, our religion changed. It was that's how I ended up with that name.
I always thought it was interesting, you know, surnames used to be kind of based on what you did, you know, and like, I mean, what were you like? What like a shearer is like what that I mean, it's not spelled the right way, but it's kind of like what that's what you do to little lambs. You just kind of shear them.
Yeah, so the direct English pronunciation, it was just shear, would put me as that, but I was a sherrier, which was a ship hand. So so it's a bastardization of the original spelling, is what it is. Because as we know, most people in Missouri, literacy is not on the top of their list. So by the time, and especially in the 1800s, so by the time we got there, they had changed it, and that's just kind of the way it ended up. But yeah, it was sherrier, and it was some sort of ship hand. So that's what it was.
My last name is Dow, and I'm German, so I'm assuming that's short for Nazi. I don't know. It's something. It's bad.
I don't know. I'm part German. I'm part Jewish. Such inner conflict, and then there's
that's got to be fun.
Yeah. Then there's some Irish and Scottish in there. So I'm basically just a European and Eastern European mutt, is what I am.
Oh yeah, my ancestors just gave all Europe just a great money shot. I have a lot of things in me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I kind of I committed to it. I'm like, well, we're 3 minutes in. It's already off the fucking rails. It's fine.
That's how I live my life, man.
Yeah. So we, usually we kind of do more of an intro and things like that, but we were just having such a good conversation off the camera. I was like, well, we're just giving away this for free, so we're just gonna kind of pick up where we were at. And I think it was something about fuck them kids. And that's always a good place to start. No, look, it's always cool to kind of meet people that are rational and are able to kind of just connect with you on just a whatever level. I don't know. But we were just talking about how, you have a fuck them kids kind of role in the house. If you want to kind of rehash that, because I need the wife to hear this too from somebody else, so she don't think I just kind of brought this out of nowhere.
You could absolutely take credit. Just put it in your own words. So
okay.
So I don't care. I'm like Prometheus with fire, man. Anything I say, just adopt it as your own. We're all just a collection, like gum on a barbershop floor, of shit we've heard in our lifetime and people we've met. So go right ahead.
Nice.
So the FTK rule in my house. Okay, so back in June I got married, and it's not my first rodeo or second rodeo. So I went through tons of therapy, which we may get into, and all that to be a healthy individual. I love my wife. I love my life. I'm absolutely in love with all of this. So we just moved in together at the same time we got married, because we lived in separate school districts. So we wanted to wait for the summer before we shifted kids into school. Now, I have 3 kids that are 23, 20, and 18. She has 2 kids that are 10 and 12. I told her, absolutely, if you want to know if I love you, I signed up for another 10 years of raising kids when I was done, right? So we're trying to make a budget, and the kids are wanting stuff, and she's running, and we're buying all this food, and groceries right now are just stupidly expensive. And so we were doing a budget, and we got our budget set, and we ended up with an FTK, meaning fuck them kids rule. And what that means is that the direct correlation is the amount of money that they bring in to contribute to the household is the amount of decisions that they get to make. So if it's 0, they make 0 decisions how we spend our money. Now they can have say, they can go, Dad, I want to go to summer camp, or Dad, I want to go to the pool, or Dad, I want Cheez-Its. They can say that shit, but it's our choice whether they get it. And they don't get to guilt us. They don't get to do whatever. We have a budget. They bring in 0 of the income, so they get 0 of the choices.
So America, I'm gonna tell you, adopt this, and just kind of want to I wasn't gonna say just fuck the kids, and I was like, no, don't do that. That doesn't sound
Not like the Catholic Church. No, this
no.
is more of this is more of a financial rule.
Right.
I just want to make that clarification before I get canceled. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good. Sometimes words ain't so good when they come out of my mouth and things. So I guess let's just kind of go here. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? Let's kind of just jump into that a little bit.
Man, that is a long, arduous story. So I come from a place. I was born and raised in Missouri, and I live back here now in my same little hometown. But through the years, I've lived in New York, I lived in Montana, Texas, and I've done a million things. But at 16, I dropped out of school. Just had some childhood trauma issues not dealing with. I was a complete and total asshole and jackass, and I dropped out of school and became a construction worker, and then a fast food worker, and then a truck driver. And I always felt that I had this ability to be more, but I never took care of my damage. I never took care of the things that made me who they are, because that's exactly, I always describe it as if you're a tree. If you plant a tree in a sapling and it gets 8 to 10 inches tall and you go break that over, it'll still grow, but it grows in a weird direction and it grows in a weird form. So as I struggle through life, I'm a very smart guy, and I'm a very observative guy, very curious guy, but I wasn't a very educated guy. So I blew through relationships, I blew through a bunch of shit, and then at a point in my life, I decided to get better, and now I'm completely professional. I have a great career. I babble into a microphone all day, produce podcasts for other people, and in a nutshell, that's kind of who I am. I'm a guy that if you've experienced it, I've probably been through it at some level and some point, because 1, I was an idiot, and 2, I had the wherewithal or awareness to fight my way out of those situations, which made it dangerous, because if you know you're smart enough to get out of a situation, then you have no filter not to be in situations.
So what kind of prompted you or drove you towards I guess getting better, for lack of a better term?
So it was about 7 or 8 years ago, 9 years ago, somewhere in there. I was on the end of my 3rd marriage. I was a stand-up comedian, and that didn't go well. And so I wanted to be a stand-up comedian so bad I would never commit life path to anything else. And also I blamed everybody else on earth for my problems. It wasn't ever my fault. It wasn't, I didn't break that relationship up, or I wasn't an asshole to that person, or I was one of those people that could literally find fault in everything but myself. Through my entire life, through 35 years of life, I did this, and I could never maintain friends. I could never maintain those connections. And then at the end of the 3rd marriage, I was sitting there and I had a cigarette in my hand, and I smoked back then, and I was getting ready to check out. I don't know if we do the calling it unalived, suicide, whatever.
Call whatever you want,
So,
man.
I took a mic cord, because I was podcasting at the time. I took a mic cord and tied it to a rafter, and I sat down on the end of my couch out in my shop, and I was smoking a cigarette and went, well, I'm worthless. This is bullshit. Nothing's ever going to work again in my life. I've experienced this. And to be honest, I've never really been in love with being alive anyway. So, so I was smoking that cigarette and I'm like, when I'm done with this cigarette, I'm done. It's the end of the road. And I don't know what part of me and where inside of me that it came from. And I have the scar on my arm. I put the cigarette out on my arm. And that was like a slap in the face. It was like in the old like airplane movie, somebody's hysterical, they slap them. So I got up from there and I made a promise to myself I was never going to feel like this again. I was never ever going to be. This isn't the first time I've sat there and tried to make this choice either. Um, I was never going to be there again. And I didn't know how to get out of that, and I didn't know what to do after that point. So I just started packing my shit. I started packing my shit, and I put it in my car to get out of the house that I was with her in. And I started driving down the road, and I don't know what it was about that moment, but I decided in that moment that this choice would never come back up. That I was going to figure some shit out, and I was going to fix and I was going to be better than I was no matter what it took.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah. That's a fun, sunny story that I really like to tell in Sunday school classes.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, man, because I feel like a lot of people, you know, I mean, a lot of people, but people struggle with that. And, especially with, how things are now, nobody has any money. There's, things feel very divided in the country. You don't know where you should stand, where you should, it's and then you add the whole COVID thing, that whole depression thing that came with that.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of struggle with that, and it's got to be a difficult thing to one, get to that point, but then even harder to say no to that. Like once you've already sort of kind of committed yourself to it.
Like I said, I still to this day don't know what it is. I'm not a religious person at all. Like that,
Right.
that is the farthest thing. I am the most scientific. We're just pieces of universe that are aware of our surroundings type person. So I don't know where that came from after I'd committed to that, but I know that from that moment on, I invested in myself and I invested in where I'm at. And one of the things that I want to bring up too, guys, it's hard for men. I was raised, I joke around a lot. And I'm like, I was raised in 1935 because I was raised in a small rural town in Missouri.
Right.
And I was given two emotions. You could act bored with it or you could be mad at it. That was really the only emotional depth I was given to deal with anything. And out of those, I was a passionate person. So I just was mad all the time. And I had the emotional intelligence of a rock. I was still 8, 9 years old at 30 some years old. So I that's the way I dealt with things. And I don't know how to answer the question of what that was that made me not do it that day, but I can absolutely 1,000% tell you that I'm glad I didn't, because the life that I've built and the life that other people have helped me build, and let me put that out there too, makes me want to be alive now, which is a weird feeling for me.
So what is that now? Like what is your life now?
I have I have a ton of friends. That's one thing that I never really had through life was friends because I was a fucking asshole, and nobody wants to be friends with somebody like that because I never knew when to keep my mouth shut. I was very brutally honest, but I was way more proud of the brutal part than the honest part. Classic internet troll bullshit, but in real life. And I was manipulative and I would take advantage of situations and things. And that was just the way you got through life. That was the way that I did things. And I'm not proud of that stuff. But today I'm very honest. I'm still honest. I still value that honesty, but I also value the gentleness and the empathy that it comes with when you should be honest and how you should be honest. I've also, like I said, I got married, love of my life. Like if you look back at all my multitude of failed relationships, the one common denominator was me. It wasn't the girls. It wasn't the situation. It wasn't my financial situation. It was my mental health. Um, and now I have with my stepkids. I have 5 beautiful kids. I have a very professional career. I mean, I babble into this microphone for a living over on my other stuff. So I mean, I can't be mad at life. I can't be mad at it. But as a whole, what my life looks like now, it's unrecognizable from that day that I did that.
I was going to ask you from a relationship standpoint. What I mean, I know, other than you not being an asshole now, but
Yeah.
what's different? If you could kind of like put them side by side, like what's the change in them?
Oh my God.
It's a loaded
So
question. I get it.
no, I'm just trying to figure out exactly. There's a lot that went into it. So childhood trauma, which I refused to get into, just made me scared of people. Generally, didn't want to get close to people. Didn't want to do that. My parents, which are still married to this day, they're assholes too. They fought all the time. Like that was how they dealt with things, is they just yelled at each other extensively, or punched each other, or did whatever. So I had no coping skills on how to do that. No, I've never hit anybody. I just want to make that clear. But I thought that was a good line. I'm like, I don't punch her in the face, so that's good. But, so that made me think I was better than my parents. But basically, I had zero love for myself. I was always reaching, and I was always trying to find some sort of validation for myself. Everybody called me arrogant, and still do, but it's on a different level. It's a healthy sort of arrogance now, but they called me arrogance because I didn't believe any of it. Everything that I did in my life was to prove to myself I was worthy of who I was, and it was empty. It was hollow. I didn't know how to commit to those things. So when it comes to loving somebody with that, you don't love them. You have a spot in your life that you're going to put a person repetitively, and they're going to have to conform to what you want, because you don't love the person. You've got a space held for a person in your life. It has nothing to do with that person. And having a girlfriend, or having a hot girlfriend, or whatever, was validation. And as soon as that person didn't feel validating to me, out and bringing you in, because we all know those feelings of love in the beginning are the absolute best. They're like crack cocaine. They are, that's what you're looking for. So between the two things of no love for myself and just constantly looking for validation, I wasn't very nice. I wasn't a very nice guy to be with. I wasn't a very nice guy to be around. And going back to that, everything was somebody's fault. Could you imagine existing in a marriage where nobody took accountability for what they did? Nobody took accountability for how they acted, and they manipulated every situation into being your fault. No one's going to stick around for that shit.
Mm-mm. Yikes. Thank God you're not that way anymore. I mean,
right.
no,
Right.
but that's, I mean, but that's, I think the real tough part is the fact that you're able to kind of step back and be able to see that. Because I feel like a lot of people that are those people are never able to really evaluate that and admit to that, because it's too much. It goes too much against the grain of, no, that's not who I am. That's what people are saying. That's just their perception. It's on them. It's on them to change the perception of what they have for me. And it's like, if everyone has that perception, you're probably a fucking dick.
Yes. Not probably.
Yeah, well, fair. Now that's awesome, man. I mean, that's just
It's self-awareness. That's what it is. It's self-awareness. When you look into that mirror, of your soul, of who you are, of how you are, of what you are, it's making that honest look. It's taking that honest look at who you are and being able to go, I don't like that thing about me. Or I like, and not defending it, and just taking that honest look and going, man, I can't believe that person I used to be, and I'm absolutely scared shitless of that person I used to be. And that helps me. That helps me go, I never want to be that person again. I never want to be like that. And like me and the new wife, we get into fights, and I can feel that rage, or I can feel that thing welling up in me. I think everybody has this magical thing in their brain going, oh, I'm going to change one day. You change how you react to your own internal feelings. That's what you change. You may never ever be able to change that trigger inside, or that thing that makes you mad, or that thing that makes you upset. But you sure as fuck can change how you deal with that trigger, and how you relate to that. That's what I changed. So that was the basis of when I found that out, and I never was going to change the way I felt about things, but I could absolutely change the way I reacted to my own feelings on the inside.
I was gonna actually ask this, and you sort of kind of already jumped on it, but I was gonna, I'll just still ask it. Maybe you can elaborate on it. For anyone that's listening that kind of has those aspects about how they are, I guess, if they have been told, hey, look, you are this way, yada, yada, yada. What are some steps that they can take to kind of become more self-aware, or to try to evaluate, it's kind of hard to articulate it, just kind of to reevaluate who you are, to learn some self-awareness, to maybe, heal, I guess.
That's the biggest thing right there. There was a lot of steps to get there. It wasn't just a thing that I was like, all right, we're here. Um, the first thing is I had to accept all parts of me. We always make, like in heavy metal music or whiny people on the internet, I have demons inside me, you do, and we all have them, and their memories, their trauma, their depression, their anxiety, their whatever you want to call them, right? And we all lock them in the basement, and we try to avoid them, and we try to keep them away from us and keep them away from our mind. I invited those motherfuckers to dinner is what I did. I no longer tried to hide those things. I no longer tried to lock them away or dealt with them in the way that I used to. What I did was I invited them to be part of the council that lives in my head. I don't know that everybody works this way. I think it's like 21% of people. Every part of your brain kind of has a different section in it. Herman's Head, if you're old enough to that show, that's kind of how my brain works.
Nope,
And
no idea.
Okay. Well, if you want to look it up, so a situation would happen and they go into his brain, and like the jock part of him was this fat guy that loves sports, and then the intellect was this dude in a sweater vest, and his feminine side was a girl, and they would just shift into his brain while he counseled that out. But a lot of people work that way. There's a certain percentage of people, and I'm gonna tell you, you just have to find what resonates with you. So for me, I invited them all to dinner because that angry person was there to protect me from my childhood trauma. The anxious part of my brain was there to protect me from my parents fighting. The trust issues, the thing that created these things inside of me, they were there for a purpose. And I know it sounds really hokey, but the broken parts of you probably need more attention and love than the success.
I'm not hokey about that at all, man. Like we talked about this off the recording. Men are terrible with emotions, and it's cool. Yeah. It's okay to feel, man. Like that's there's nothing like I'll for anyone that hasn't heard this episode, there's a few episodes previous to our vacation that we were getting a puppy, a brand new puppy from a breeder that we have gone to, and saw the picture, fell in love, paid the deposit, and he died before we even got him. And it broke me. It broke me, and just like people almost were mocking of me because I was so sad for something that I never actually met. But I found myself on the porch crying because and it wasn't because we couldn't get the puppy. It was that empathetic part of me went out to that puppy because he could have had we have 5 cats and a dog right now. He would have had a beautiful home. He would have had so many little friends, and he would have had such a fun little life, but he got that raped away from him. And that made me sad, very sad. And just something like that, which you would think would elicit a normal human response. Guys have been conditioned to be, as you said, you got the 2 emotions, bored or fucking mad. And that's not healthy. Like,
no. And the thing is, when you're crying and you're feeling that, I'm assuming that you had that man guilt thing in your brain You know, like I shouldn't be reacting like this. I shouldn't be over
There
here
was
with
a
this
part of it,
emotion.
yeah. It's like I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
anyone to catch me, but I'm also
I
like,
I still deal with that shit to this day. Like something makes me happy. Like I cried at my wedding. Like I'm finally
oh
happy.
yeah, oh I
And
cried like a
and
bitch.
yeah. And I'm crying and we're doing our dance and I'm like, man, I finally found it. I finally found this happiness in this person that loves me and cares about me. And then I realized I'm weeping like a little girl in front of people and that man part of my brain shut it down. I couldn't like took it away. I still deal with that to this day that it still takes it away at times. And I get mad. I get mad at that. You know, I'm
Yeah,
like, man, brain, come on. I want that feeling. I want to be able to cry. I want to be able to experience that emotion. And maybe at some point in my life I'll be able to do that when I have grandkids or there because let me preface this. You'll never fucking be done working on yourself. Those
yeah.
people that are like, I'm done, we call them boomers. Sorry. But you'll never be done being better. I think that's a commitment I had to make to myself that day is that there's no and at
That's
the
a
time
great
I thought
tip,
there
actually.
yeah I thought there was a finishing point. I'm like, all right, if I make this goal and I increase this and I do some therapy and I become this self-aware and I do these things, then I'll be better. And I was. But then I look at it and go, no, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this. And you'll never be better. You're an evolutionary creature, and that is what you were made to be. If you're like you see people that still dress from the 80s or the 90s and they stop growing and they stop doing things. I almost feel bad for those people because I notice as I'm 45 now, there is that certain stuff I don't understand anymore. I'm just like, kids are weird today. But that doesn't mean I want them to stop being weird. That doesn't mean I want them to stop exploring because I guarantee you our parents looked at us like we were weird little creatures too. And we're looking at that and it's so funny because my youngest child is 18 and then the stepson is 10. My 18-year-old's like that kid is weird, like into weird Scooby toilet things on YouTube and I try to watch him and then my 18-year-old is like, yeah, I'm out on that too. Like the generational shift because of technology is now no longer 20 years, it's about
It
8 to
seems,
10.
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
so much. It does not take that long anymore.
I mean, what happened between 1776 and 1876? Not a lot. I know there was events that happened, but in technology and communication, not a whole lot. There was no big medical advances. You get to 1890 to 1920, you start getting the Industrial Revolution. You start cameras and pictures and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, from 1920 to 1950, starts speeding up, and from 50 to 70 is unrecognizable. From 70 to 90 is a total fucking spaceship, and then from 90 to 2010 it's unrecognizable. So you can see those generational shifts with technology and communication just coming faster. So you got to be
That's a great
evolutionary.
thing, man. I've never even thought of that, but that is a really interesting
Yeah,
kind of way to look at it because yeah, as time has gone on, yeah, there
yeah.
were pivotal events, but how it's like every like 12 and a half minutes there's a pivotal event now, and it's like, oh, okay,
well
well we just learned something else now.
we were talking a little politically before, and I don't want to dive into politically, but kind of what goes
It's
along
my
with that.
podcast. We'll do what the fuck
I
we
know.
want.
That's fair. I I have to walk a line. So anyway, so if you think about, we label people progressives and liberals, right? Or we label people progressives and conservatives. I'm sorry, progressives and conservatives. If you break that down, progressives take an idea and they want to progress that idea to the next level. Conservatives want to conserve the ideology that is there today. That's where the names come from, progressive and conservative. And in the past, that has worked out pretty well because the progressives pull and just want to go off into the ethos with all of their weirdness they want. And the conservatives plant their feet. And it's a good balance. It's a good balance because they pull humanity along at a certain clip, right? Lately that balance is crazy. It's like both sides are playing some crazy tug of war thing, and it seems like our society is just doing circles at this point. And I'm trying like we overturning Roe versus Wade. I thought shit from the 70s was over and done and not coming back up, you know. And then gay rights and all, why are we still debating this 20, 30, 40 years after the fact? So it seems like that shift has gotten off of there, and now we're doing this weird circle.
Like Back to the Future. a little bit. It's
Yeah.
and it's just well, we won't jump into the political kind of
Yeah.
arena
No,
there,
no.
but it's kind of like you kind of shake your head, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of things to be
It,
sad about.
and to bring this little side trail back into what we were talking about is that, like you said, there's a lot of people out there that are depressed, that are crazy, that are anxious, that are going through all of this because with social media and our phones and
Yeah.
100% connected to the world at all times now, this shit is having a big mental effect on people.
And it's just a weird little thing that's kind of popped in my head here because I ran to the store yesterday to get a Diet Dr. Pepper and to cash in a $25 lottery ticket that I won because
Right.
whatever happened. And just walking home, I was like, life's pretty fucking cool, man. And just
Yeah.
sometimes, and I think with everything that we have accessible to us, every technological advance, every connection we can have with anything on the internet, sometimes it's just cool just to kind of look at life and just be like, hey, shit's okay, man. And I think we move too fast to really embrace that and appreciate it because if you have spoken on it, life could be much, much worse.
Oh yeah.
And you have been to that bottom of the barrel, moment. And
Oh yeah.
like sometimes the fact that you're able to walk to the store, just something that simple. You're allowed to walk to the store. You're able to walk to the store. You're able to spend your money.
Yeah.
You have money to spend.
Oh,
Slow down and smell it, man. I don't know.
For all the political talk and all the bullshit, we still live in a pretty good area. We still live in a place that we're able to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, there's struggles, and every country has their struggles, and every place has their struggles. But yeah, the fact that I can work a living and I can make a living, and there's never been a time in this world, in this America, that it's been easier to start your own business, to be your own boss, to be your own entrepreneur, to find that thing. Because we hear a lot of talk about the big billionaire companies, but they're so high above us now. Is that, and that's what I do for a living, is I help people start businesses and I help people run.
I was going to ask you. I wanted to get
and
into
do that.
exactly
Yeah.
kind of what you're.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my official title is I'm a director of marketing and special projects at an Inc. 5000 marketing company. We have 4 locations in the US and 1 out of the country. So that's what I do. So if you wonder where I made it to, that's where I made it to and I did that. I did that through podcasting, actually, in a weird way. So back in about a year before the incident with the cigarette, I had a podcast and I got it to about 50,000 followers, and I was doing marketing for that podcast. Now, you got to understand that I had been a truck driver. By trade, when this podcast started, I was a truck driver. And so I was doing this podcast. I gathered up some of my friends, but I was also a stand-up comedian. So I got one of my comedian friends and got some help or whatever. So I brought it up, and then that gang kind of disbanded, which led to a bunch of myriad of problems and probably the incident. But in that time, I was doing marketing, and I've always been a fan of graphic design, Photoshop, stuff like that. So I figured out if I could make the marketing and do the video editing, I could pocket most of the marketing money and just mention people and talk to them about my podcast or whatever. So then that marriage ended. And I wanted to stay in that field. I wanted to find something in the marketing. So a little radio station by Fort Leonard Wood took a chance on me, and now I was their morning DJ. So I went from a truck driver to a podcaster to a morning DJ. And so I'm DJing there, and I failed miserably out of that job, by the way.
Why?
I didn't know I didn't know office politics. I didn't know how to be in an office with people. I was some filthy mouth truck driving,
Okay.
Depressed degenerate trying to fit into this office. But surprisingly, I never cursed on the air. That was one of my biggest things, but my station manager did. And once. So that was kind of a funny thing. The worst I ever got in trouble for being there, Prince had just recently passed away, and I am not a Prince fan. I am just not. I think he's the Kmart version of Michael Jackson. Anyway, so not that I like Michael Jackson either, so that should tell you. Anyway, so I was filling in in on the afternoons and stuff, and it was a request show, and they would call in and request stuff. So about the 6th call for Prince I got, I was fed up with it. I was tired of listening to it. So I'm like, hey, everybody, here is Purple Rain for the 7th time by the artist formerly known as Alive, Prince.
Oh,
And this is like, yeah, right? I have my station manager. She was in that office in a hot second, being like, "No, we don't do that here. We don't do that." But but at the time, because I had walked away from this marriage, I walked away from the house, I walked away from everything. I'm broke, so I'm working at a factory overnight. I am working at a factory making air conditioner compressors from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 a.m. I'm going home. I'm sleeping for an hour and a half. Then I'm going into the radio station, and I'm doing the radio station, copping a nap in the afternoon, and then I was a waiter at Applebee's on the weekends. So so I lost 2 of those jobs for sleeping through them, but I maintained the radio job. And then it took a weird turn from there. We could do a whole show. I was a rent to own district manager for a couple years, which rent to own, if you've ever experienced it,
like Rent-A-Center type of deal.
Yeah, like Rent-A-Center shit. So I was like
Terrible.
a district manager. Yeah, but I worked in there for 2 or 3 years. But I'm always marketing. I always had my side business of marketing. I never got away from marketing. I adopted clients. I was the graphic designer. I wrote copy, did video editing. It was always a side hustle. Always 100% side hustle. And then I became an insurance agent. I just kept taking better jobs. I kept figuring out how to bullshit my way into better jobs is basically how it was. So coming off of being a district manager, I went and was an F&I manager at a car lot for a while. Had no clue how to do that job, but it earned me a title. And so then I went and took my insurance test, was an insurance agent. I hated insurance. Every minute of it. I was an independent health insurance agent. And in the little town that we did it in, they had a barber shop that had a speakeasy under it. This is about 50 miles from where I live now. And I hated it. And the girlfriend I was with at the time, was my boss. And I didn't much care for her either. So I would go to the speakeasy in the downtown of this town in Springfield, Missouri, and I would drink all day. And all the other business owners would come down there and drink too. So I started selling them insurance. That's actually one of the plaques on my wall is some award.
Really?
Insurance or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just a good bullshitter, right? So I did that. So I had to go to all these networking groups, BNI, the mob, the whatever. And I hated them. If you've never been to a networking group, they're awful. They're just a bunch of business salesmen with their cards. They've got their cards out going, here, buy shit from me. And you're doing the same thing. It's just, it's not great, but it's a necessity of that part of life. So there was a group called We & Co. And I'm sorry for going so long here, but there was a group called We & Co. And it was women centric, but they finally changed to let men into groups. And we had these little pods that we went into. So there was like 8 or 10 of us in this little room doing this network meeting thing. And she's like, hey, we're having a wine and talk thing at my house on Saturday. And we're doing this, but sorry, boys, you can't go to it and you can't whatever. So I'm in with all these professional people. And I go, that's okay. I did the Futurama thing. I'm like, that's okay. I'll just create my own networking group with blackjack and hookers. And right. So out of these people sitting around this table, 2 guys laughed like really hard. So after we get out of this networking group, which was like 10 o'clock in the morning, by the way, I'm like, hey, do you want to go to the speakeasy and drink? You guys seem like cool people, right? You guys seem like cool people. And they're like, yeah. So we go to the speakeasy and we go drink and we start talking about what our favorite network group would look like if we have to do this networking. And so we invented this networking group called Cigars and Scotch, to where we get together at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, smoke cigars, drink scotch, talk about business, right? Now, fortuitously, I am actually thinking about giving up insurance and going marketing full time. I've named a business. I've got a business. I'm going into marketing. I have enough money to live off of marketing at this point, but I'm using insurance to supplement it. As an independent agent, I really had no boss. The guy that I went drinking with that day was the president of a national marketing company that had an office there in Springfield. And me and him invented this Cigars and Scotch together. And 6 months later, I started at the marketing company. Because I couldn't there was a fear of running your own business. There's that, where am I going to eat? What am I going to do? How am I going to eat? How am I going to eat? So broke up with the girl, moved back to my hometown, did this, went to work at Titan as a sales, totally sucked at sales. 1,000% sucked at sales. For the marketing company, but they understood I had skills. So they started bringing me in on big accounts to talk to people, to balance accounts out, to do high-end graphic design for people. And it just kept growing after that. Every opportunity that I could find, kind of going back from when I was a shithead and would take advantage of things, it made me in this point of life realize what good opportunities were so I could do them honestly. I'm not trying to scam anybody. I'm like, they would be like, hey, can you do this for us? And I'm like, fuck no. If I don't know, I can learn. So I put myself in that position. And then at this point, it's the president of it's the owner of the company, the president of the company, and me. So that's where I have risen to. And if this podcast doesn't get me fired, that's where I'm at. That's where I've made it from sitting on that couch as a truck driver at the end of a third failed marriage, getting ready to hang myself in late 2015, I think it was, to where I'm at today. And that's kind of the journey that I took myself on.
That's pretty boring. I mean,
I know. I'm sorry if anybody's out there still awake. I've got
good God, could you add a little color to that? Jesus God Almighty, dude, that's nuts.
Yeah,
but it's just like the entrepreneurial kind of spirit, and that's the beautiful part about it, because you're like, I have a dream, I have an idea, let's go with it.
So bravery and stupid are a lot of fucking like. You understand that, right? Bravery and stupid are almost indistinguishable. It's usually the result that tells you which one you were. And I don't know if I'm stupid or I'm brave, but I never, how I got into comedy, another quick story. I know I keep rattling off. Another quick story.
You're the guest. So yeah, it's kind of the whole MO of it.
I know. I understand, but as I host podcasts, I'm like, God damn it, will he shut up? But how I got into comedy is I'd done like a handful of open mics. Now I'm a waiter at this local bar, and we're looking for promotions. So working for him was kind of like playing Grand Theft Auto. I think the dude's in jail for cocaine trafficking now or some shit. Right. But anyway, so we were looking for promotions, and the DJ there said, this guy does comedy. Now, remember, I'd only done like a handful of open mics. I was kind of a Facebook comedian. I just wrote pithy shit on Facebook or whatever. So the owner says, hey, do you want to do some open mic stuff here at the bar? Sure. And he goes, get other comedians, come in. I'll give you an hour on Thursday night. We just need asses and seats. So I'm like, all right. I searched and couldn't find anybody else. So I did the entire hour myself. Yeah. And if you don't understand how much talking in front of somebody comedically for an hour is, it's fucking forever. So, but, and this kind of ties into pre-marketing. Before I knew I was good at marketing, this was pre-podcast. I had 250 people at that first show in this little bar. They were flying out because I made posters, and I was good at it. Right. I wasn't a very good comedian. I was just good at the marketing part. But so I did my thing, was up there 45 minutes, 50 minutes, crawled off stage. The owner is like, that wasn't bad, man. You want to do it again next week? And I'm like, yeah, fuck, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. I don't know how to say no, and I'm an idiot, stupid or brave, right? And so the next week I come and I cleaned up the set a little bit, because in stand-up, if you don't know, you just do the same jokes over and over and you just travel. Well, I forgot to remember that I wasn't traveling. So the next week, the same people showed up, and all I had was the same material I did last year, but last week better. So on the fly, I arranged some of it and I do it, but it was pretty copy. It was pretty close. Right. It's kind of like Dr. Pepper and Dr. Thunder, right? They were pretty close. So I get off the stage and I thought, well, that's it. That's my comedy career. It's over. And the guy, the owner of the bar, came up to me and he said, if you want to keep doing this every week, I'd write some new shit, and turn around and walked off. And I'm like, okay. So for 13 weeks in a row, I did an hour of comedy in this little bar. I never invited anybody else. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it was good. Sometimes it was bad. The local fair beat me. The lowest attendance I ever had a show was 8 people. And that was the night the local fair was in town. Every time else, it was like 50 or 80 people, and it became a thing. But once again, brave or stupid, I don't know which one I was. But so he gets convicted of a bunch of shit. So he's got to close the bar down. And so for that last night, he hired an actual comedy tour to come in and do the show. But I opened for that comedy tour, and that comedy tour hired me that night. So then I started touring with them after that night.
Who's the most famous comedian you met?
Probably the blue collar guys. I met them a couple
Oh, really?
times.
Okay.
Which was really bad because I'm from Missouri. I'm from the South. I'm sure I sound like a fucking redneck. And so
No,
I
not at
would,
all.
I would,
I sound more of a hillbilly than you.
I would be on these. Yeah, I've tried to get rid of. I would be on tour, and I'd go to places like I would go to places, and you got to understand these are small tours, like Best Westerns and dive bars. When I say I'm
Right.
touring comedy, it is not glamorous, right? At all. And the reason I met the blue collar guys was I met them at a truck stop one time.
Oh,
So
jeez.
so as far as meeting famous comics, Larry the Cable Guy was actually the one that I had any sort of set with.
Okay.
And I was like the opener to the opener to the opener. So
Okay.
it's not glamorous at all. But I would go up there I would get to the northern states or the Northeast or whatever. And the way I did it was I was still a truck driver, right? So I would take time off and I would go do tours, and then I would just find places to book because I knew every month where I was going. So I would just find places along the way to book and do the comedy while I was truck driving. So I would get up into these places or whatever, and I would start talking and I would start doing shit, and it was like do some blue collar shit, and I'm like, that's not me, man. I sound like them, but that's not what I do. So
That's funny.
yeah.
So,
And I'm by the way, I'm willing to prove every fucking bit of this. This is not a million little pieces or some fucking bullshit. I can prove like all of this.
oh yeah, no, believe me, I just think that's such a cool little, like, yeah. So I was truck driver, then I did comedy. Now I'm a marketing guru, and that's what I did. What did you do?
Yeah.
I woke up and almost shit myself, but other than that, I'm.
Well, I did that too. I had Brussels sprouts and brats last night. I've been fighting that shit all day. So
Oh God. Well, condolences. Good luck to you.
Yeah, right. Good luck to my wife, really, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. So, So on a day-to-day basis, I know you. I mean, your podcast that you do. What is your podcast kind of? What is it? I guess is a good way to put it.
I have two. I have
Okay.
two different podcasts. One is called Small Business Chronicles. And we're basically a utility knife for small businesses. Entrepreneurial spirit is something that's always been near and dear to me. So we've done shows on emotional intelligence, on etiquette when you're doing networking, how to set up e-commerce businesses, what tax breaks you can take, what tax breaks you can't take. Walked straight from here's an idea, how do I develop that into a marketing plan? Several different coaches, several different areas of life. And it's kind of the same thing with the mental health. You need to find something that resonates with you. We're all different people. We're all in different positions in life. So when you're looking at a cookie cutter podcast or cookie cutter business stuff, we're all going to tell you the same thing. But I can have 3 shows about taxes and all 3 shows be remarkably different because of the person on there resonates different with different parts of my audience. And if you can tell, I'm not the normal business guy, so I don't ask the normal businessy questions. So it's more of a deep dive,
Which I think
I
helps.
yeah, oh, absolutely,
Because nobody wants to, do the real boring kind of. So I work tech support, and I'm very good at what I do because I am completely not conventional, and I fix so many things because I don't follow the rules.
Yeah.
So thinking outside the box is definitely an important thing that I think a lot of people can't really do because either ability or fear or just, I guess, general know-how. But
yeah.
okay.
So yeah, and there's a lot of, and like I said, it's easier than ever. You don't have to have. I'm a high school dropout, and I'm doing these things. I'm sorry if I'm not looking directly in the camera. Stupid setup. But I'm not. And it's the ability to learn. It's that drive inside of you. We live in the age of YouTube information. I mean, the brick that you hold in your hand that you're watching TikToks with is also a portal to the universe of everything. Google offers classes on marketing. There's millions of resources that you can have for whatever you want to do. Don't be sad to imitate, or don't be afraid to imitate somebody else, because eventually you'll branch out. Do you think my digital marketing advice? I didn't invent digital marketing. Everything I spew, I learned from somebody else. And you have to go learn, and you have to find that education as you go through business and you go through to do those things. And that's kind of the tip that I would give you is there's a lot of noise. LinkedIn is the worst place on earth if you want to be friendly. It's like the soulless void. I'm sorry, all the people on LinkedIn that are going to see this. It's kind of a void. Everybody's being all businessy and handshaky and stuff like that. But like
Right.
when I was successful in insurance, I went and day drank with all the other owners that were all the other real people that were all the other real life, right? There's real life going on. And in America, we seem to want to strap this mask on when we do business. And we have to be business, and we have to be etiquette, and we can't curse, and we can't be human. And that's what I like about my show is I try to be human. Now, I've probably recorded 25 episodes at this point. About 10 episodes are out. And the more I do this, the more I'm getting back into the swing of podcasting and figure out business and stuff like that. The more human they're getting, the more I like to call myself an idiot asking questions, because I try to put myself on the other side of that. It's like, I don't know what I know. I don't know what in business. Or I take that what I do know in business to ask questions. Maybe Rich, you would have, or maybe one of your listeners would have. So that's the business podcast. It is a business podcast, so we're not going to tackle the meaning of life or mental health issues. We're going to talk about the scientific steps of business. Business is a science, and we're going to talk about how to navigate that and different pieces and tools for that. So,
And that's beautiful, man, because at the end of the day, I think the human element is kind of taken away from business. Like you are very,
oh
hey,
yeah,
this is how you should be. This is how you should do it.
yeah,
I mean, I look at me running this podcast or podcasts
yes,
as a business, because I mean, essentially, I am a business owner. I pay money. I'm still looking for that revenue to kind of happen, but hey, it's fine. Who needs
We'll
money?
talk after the show.
Yeah, who needs money?
Yeah,
But I go about it completely different than other people. Yeah, there are
right.
obvious, similarities between me and other people, but I think if you put your own kind of quote unquote stank on it, then it's always going to be kind of your baby. And
Yes,
as long as you believe in it, keep going. Keep going,
right.
because we started off with no one listening. Now we have like 2. No, we have more than 2. But
4, 6, it doesn't matter.
yeah, it's fine. They probably have extremities and heads. I don't know. We're not sure. I always tell people, look, I'm an idiot. Well, I'm not an idiot, but I'm kind of an idiot. And I had an idea and I went with it and I enjoy it. And
Yeah,
eventually, in my head, this is going to become something bigger and this is going to become my job. That's
right.
my goal. So as long as you have a goal and an idea and some passion, who can stop you? And if it doesn't work, I don't care, because I still enjoy doing it. So I'm not in it for the money. I think that's kind of why in my head it's going to become successful, because I'm not in it just for it to be a lucrative, you know, career, job, whatever. Do it because I like it. And I'm seemingly not terrible at it.
No, you're not terrible at it at all. It's one of those things. Like I said, I've been doing this off and on for years,
Yeah.
and when I look back and that first podcast I did, the one that got all the followers, I wiped it from the face of the earth.
Yeah.
But I had 2 failed ones before that, and I've had 2 failed ones since then.
Oh,
So you're gonna fail. You're absolutely gonna fail. Um, but when you do podcasting, you're right. You have to find your own system to do things, and you
yes.
don't have to have my best tip I would give you for business, for podcasting, for whatever, is you don't have to have an end result. You don't have to have a finished product. You have to have a strong beginning, and you have to have the ability to grow off of that. I,
Yes.
out of the stories that I've told today, my favorite I haven't told yet is me and you were talking because of a tire blowout. And because back in 1955, my grandfather was moving from Ohio to Texas. or from Kentucky to Texas, whatever it was, and came through a little town called Lebanon, Missouri. And he was a very poor family, and their car broke down. Tire blew out, car broke down. They couldn't afford to fix it, so they just decided to live here. My grandpa fucked my grandma, and now we're talking. So you understand that because of that out of weird coincidence, me and you were sitting here. You have to be able to recognize the opportunity. You have to be able to make the best of where you're at, and not be content. I struggle with not being content. I want to be content at some point in life, and I don't think I ever will be. But once you get content, you'll start trying to move out of that. Yeah, you'll start moving out. But my point is, you don't need a finished product to succeed. You need an opportunity. You need to recognize that opportunity, and you need a strong beginning point. And then after that, everything else is evolution. Everything else is just evolving where you're at.
Oh yeah, believe me, this podcast has been an evolution a few times over, and I think that's the only reason why it's garnered a following. The wife was my biggest critic. She's like, "Yeah, I don't listen to the other podcasts because it fucking sucks." I'm like, "Oh well, fuck you, you whore." I was like,
well, you know,
I was like, "Well, hold on, you're right. It does. It's bad. Let's kind of adapt and overcome this." And
yeah,
it's beautiful, man.
And you just move on, and you do better, and you have to have that same criticism that you have with yourself. Like I'm an asshole, so I need to change that, or I'm never going to not be an asshole, so I need to work on my approach. And the same thing goes for podcasting. This sounds wrong. This sounds better. This looks better. This is whatever. I commit 3 to 5 hours a week to grow just the production quality of the podcast. That's all I do. My camera now is my iPhone. I struggled with different cameras and different whatever, and I figured out one day how to hook my. Yeah, I figured out, but my iPhone has ran into my Mac, so I'm not just using an iPhone. I run in my iPhone into my Mac, and I've got my professional mic here. If you take a look over here, I got professional lighting set up. I've got, it's all contrived to look easy. Right. So you spend that time, and on this side is a ring light, and I got monitors over here, and I got an inline processor for my mic. So all of these things that we're doing, you do them. But my first podcast was done with a little stick microphone that sounded like shit. And then this series of podcasts that I'm doing. So I just made a commitment that 3 to 5 hours a week, I'm going to improve production on my podcast. I'm going to take X amount of money that I'm making from this podcast, and I'm going to roll it back over. And at first, that's initial investment. And you just spend, you dedicate yourself to this many hours or this much time, and no matter what. And that's the commitment. It's not a thing you can do later. It's not a thing that gets pushed out of the way because mama wants to get freaky or whatever. It's that this portion of time of my week is all about growing and improving the quality of my podcast. And that goes into, if I want to grow and improve the quality of my speech, if I want to grow and improve the quality of my writing, if I want to grow and include the quality of my drawings, if I want to go and improve the quality, insert blank here, you have to commit time to that. That's 1,000%. So with your podcast, as long as you commit that time and you commit that growth, you think the Joe Rogan podcast and all those big podcasts don't put money into making that better. They just have a bigger investment so they can do it quicker.
Right.
So you have to invest that time, money, and effort into whatever you're doing. And it has to be a commitment that you're not going to get away from that.
Yeah. I've become very accustomed to, dedicating hours to neglecting the wife, and it's beneficial for everything. I don't have to deal with her. She doesn't have to deal with me, and I get to focus on something I actually like. So
Right.
It works out for everybody. No, I mean, and that's joking aside, no, that's exactly as a business owner, as somebody, anyone that's listening that wants to start something, listen to Ryan here. He knows what he's yapping about. I mean, it makes perfect sense. If you want to, it doesn't just happen. This isn't like a TikTok trend where you shake your ass and, people follow you because they're silly. This is something you actually have to dedicate time to. And
yes.
And I think like the passion comes through too. And I think that's the important thing. You can't fake that.
But one of the things I want to pile on, yes, you cannot fake the passion, but there are things that I do every week that I am not passionate about. But
Yeah.
that's where the discipline comes in. That you commit that time. Like I'm dyslexic. I have a horrible time writing. I hate writing. I would rather staple my face to a moving train than write things. Right?
Yikes.
That's just what I would do. But with the invention of Chat GPT, with other aids, with other help, I now can write. So now I have this new thing that I can do that I've always kind of been afraid of all of my life. Technology can be used in that fashion as well, but I still don't like it. I still don't much care for it, but I have tools that can help me. I have tools that can help me get better. And so, yeah, I practice my writing every week because I'm that guy, but I know if I'm ever going to be better at it, that's that dedication. So the passion has to be a higher level of passion, of a passion of just self-improvement, or a passion of being in a different place. And then that discipline from the lower side of that will start pushing that passion up as well. It's easy to be passionate about things, right?
It is, but actually putting pen to paper, that's because there's always that fear. There's that fear of failure.
Yep.
There's that fear of just sounds good in theory, but how's it going to actually look in execution? And yeah.
Okay, so you're in Pittsburgh. I don't know how you feel about Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I did not watch it for a very long time because fuck Philly. Then I watched it.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I love it.
So the one thing that changed my life, and I had this on repeat, and I listened to every fucking morning of my life. And then if I start feeling disconnected, I listen to it again. If you go to YouTube and you look Charlie Day commencement speech.
Okay.
So and I'm going to butcher it here, but he said, you can't let fear of failure stop you from doing what you're going to do. You're going to fail, but now you can fail where you want, in the way you want, and on the road that you want to. But if you let that fear stop you, you're never going to grow. You're never going to do anything. And there's two versions of it. One of them is like 2 minutes, and that's my go get him speech. The other one is about 25 minutes where he tells the story of he come out of college, he had a job at Dow Jones, but he wanted to be an actor. And how he screwed off his college education, screwed off whatever, went and slept on a buddy's roach infested floor and borrowed a camera and made Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So it's all about taking those risks, those chances, and being afraid. So go watch that, put out changed my life. And if I ever get I would love, because I don't want to get shot by security, but I would just love to give Charlie Day a hug, because in that dark time, that's one of the things that resonated with me. And that's one of the things that I held on to as well. And the other thing would have been secular Buddhism. I'm not a religious guy. I've already stated that, but secular Buddhism is just a science of how your mind works, basically. And when you're talking about mindfulness, meditation,
Right.
we're all going to die. Life is pain. All that pretty stuff is part of that. And that really helped me align my focus as well. So.
I'm definitely gonna check that out now because I do like
Yeah.
Charlie Day, and not for
Oh, yeah.
nothing, he feels like the guy that would let you give him a hug.
Yeah, right. I would love like that is my bucket list thing, because I come from the Church of George Carlin. He's the reason why I ever wanted to be a comedian. I can quote everything that he's ever said. And the Comedy Cellar in New York, I actually got to do a set on that. It was an open mic thing. It's not impressive to anybody else but me. But I got to stand where my idol stood and do some comedy. So it was long after I died. So my next famous person bucket list is Charlie Day, is giving Charlie Day a hug. So that's my next thing.
Well, that would be actually a pretty cool thing because
right.
I don't know. He just seems like a real like down to earth kind of,
He really does. Yeah.
It's kind of rare to even find someone that has any level of like infamy to be like, hey, I seem like I could say hi to you and you wouldn't shun me for being a person to you.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of that Charlie Day gets. I know like Taylor Swift and Adele, like, your songs mean a bunch to me or whatever. I'm like, man, I used to watch you be a complete dick on this TV show. And then I found this thing on YouTube you said one time and it made me cry. And now I'm just in love with you. So can I have a hug? So yeah, that I don't know how well that is going to play out.
Yeah, I think
Hopefully
if you omit the I'm in love with you part, I think everything was cool until you got to that part, because that may be like, okay, I'm going to go this way because that's
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, man. Let's plug your stuff here. I don't want to like take up too much of your day here because we're at about an hour already, which honestly happens to be way too much because like I don't understand how I go down all the rabbit holes, and it's a shame because it felt like it was like 15 minutes, and it's
You're
that
right. Good conversation. That's the way it goes, and that's how you know
yeah
you're having a good time. You know, time
right
flies when you're having fun or on drugs, and both of those seem a reasonably good time. Don't do drugs, kids. I'm just kidding.
yeah
I mean, some drugs are okay. Some drugs, like, have you ever noticed, like, you look at like, you look at people on cocaine, and you're like, man, they're having a pretty good time. You look at people on weed, and you're like, man, he's pretty chill. Mushrooms, man, he's having a good time. I have never once looked at a fucking crackhead or a meth addict and went, I want to try that shit. Like, not
yeah
once in my life have I ever done that,
yeah.
ever.
It's that weird kind of, and we've actually done an episode about drugs and what have
Yeah.
you. It's interesting because you go from like, hey, this is fun to like, oh no, that's sad.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have
Well,
done that.
I had a drug addiction, but I did it like a housewife. It was Xanax, and I had
Yeah.
like 4 doctors, and I mean the doctors were giving it to me. So I mean it wasn't, at the time I didn't think it was an addiction, but it was. It was definitely an addiction. So yeah, plug my stuff right after that talk.
Yeah, it's fine.
I have nothing. I have nothing to plug. That's what I'm going with. No, Small Business Chronicles. You can find me. I plastered it everywhere. I on Apple, on Spotify. If I could nail the show to a bathroom wall, I would. I've made it remarkably easy to find. I'm on Facebook. I'm in LinkedIn. I'm trying to get enough followers on TikTok because I'm just a creeper on TikTok, but I'm trying to get enough followers on TikTok to do some live stuff on there. But I'm everywhere. So if you Google my name or Small Business Chronicles, you'll find it. The other plug is coming out at the end of next week is my other show called Interesting People. In doing this podcast, I've met a lot of interesting people, and that premieres with a lady named Randy. She's a 5th generation funeral homeowner in Philly, and they've handled funerals for the stars, and they've handled lots of cool stuff. And she was born and raised in it that whole life. So she came to me through a public relations person that I had on the show, and we ended up talking for 2 or 3 hours, and it'll be condensed down, of course, to about an hour. But that's the first episode, and then the second episode I'm still working on. They're not scheduled releases. It's just when I find someone I want to pull on the show. The only way I can explain this guy is he's the Charles Bukowski of marketing. He's an older guy. I interviewed him for the Small Business Chronicles, and he chain smoked and cursed through the whole show, and I fell in love with the dude. So
Nice.
So I'm going to interview him. So that's coming out. You can just follow those channels. I'm sure I'll promote it on those as well. Rich, thank you so much for having me. Sorry, I
Well,
just
absolutely,
yapped
man.
on and on, but
No, that's what I want. Like that's the. Let me give you a quick little preface of how my podcasts work. Me and my host, we don't talk about what we're going to talk about before we actually get on the podcast. So it is 1,000,000,000% organic, and we learn so many cool, crazy things about each other. That's kind of the allure of it. So by no means feel zero. There's zero issue with you. I reached out to you. You didn't reach out to me.
Yeah.
So
right. But thank you for having me on. Hopefully they have value. And the last thing I want to plug, Ryan@titandigital.com is my email. If you guys are suffering through any mental thing, you want to talk, hey, how did you handle this? Whatever, feel free to reach out. I'm all about helping people. One of the next journeys of my life in the next 3 or 4 years is I'm going to try to figure out how to put this weird ass journey of mine into a form, because I think at this point I can help some people kind of get out of that spot. The way I was in, I've always felt like I don't want to be that poor me guy. Look at what I was through. Look at my childhood trauma. Look at my this.
Man.
Look at my that. I don't want to be that. What I want to do is I want to empower people to get out of those spots and out of that position. And I don't really care about making money at it. I've got my marketing shit and stuff that I make money at. I just want to get a platform so I can help people, and men especially, get out of that spot. So
person to person, man, do it. Don't pussyfoot around with that, because I think a lot of people can resonate with stories, whether they can, like, I went through the exact same thing, or I went through certain things, or you can correlate your own life to someone else's completely different experiences. I think that is insanely helpful, and I really, really wish more people would do stuff like that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your words of encouragement. And let me know when this comes out. I'll put it through all my channels as well.
Oh, it'll be out today. I don't
Okay.
fuck around.
No, you don't fuck around. I've
No.
got such a backlog. People are on my show, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. So
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I've
send me the
literally,
link. Yeah.
I've literally released 3 episodes in well, actually, no, 4 episodes in 3 days. That's what I
Well,
do.
that's fair. That's fair. And also something I can help with, and you can edit it. Well, I don't know if you even edit. I
Nope.
don't really. But if you want your own podcast at our marketing company, we do that too. We make it about as turnkey as we can make it. You show up and do all the fun stuff, and I do all the bullshit stuff in the background.
Nice.
So we can do that too.
And I'll obviously, just like I always do, I'll post all the links in the description notes, and it'll be on YouTube and Apple. You see the little fucking banner at the bottom. You know what it is.
Yeah.
I just started doing that, and I thought, I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. It saves me
Man,
from having to actually talk.
I am so pimped out on StreamYard. It's like, it looks like a news show.
Yeah.
Like I have built, I've got a set behind me, and I've got banners, and I've got all my shit pre-programmed at this point. So
Yeah, I gotta spend some time playing around with that a little bit to kind of get everything kind of how I want it. So I'm just like playing just a tip every few days. Like, let me add something else.
Oh, and that's, like I said, that's that growth. That's that little step-by-step growth that you look back 20 shows and you're like, I don't even recognize this show anymore. So,
and that's the cool part about cool part about it. Like, you know, to grow. And I hear so many people say, oh, I don't like to look at the old stuff. I'm like, why, man? You could see how shitty you were and now how less shitty you are.
I don't want to break the illusion, but I'm that guy. I don't listen. Like I will pick up bits and pieces of it, but I will literally go slam my face in a car door if I have to listen. Like, no one should edit their own shit. That I edit stuff for everybody else, and I breeze through it, and everybody was like, "Hey, that's really good. I like what you did with that." I sat down to edit mine, and I'm like, "Oh, I said too much. I'm gonna go kick kittens or something because now I'm mad about it." So not that I would ever kick a kitten. I'm just kidding. Please. I mean, dogs are better, but still. But no, but yeah, you're editing your stuff. You'll be all in your head about it. So
yeah, and there's 2 ways to think about it, but yeah, absolutely. It's you can learn from it. You can also cringe uncontrollably. So it's kind of like, yeah. All right, man. Well, look, I appreciate you a bunch, and not for nothing, you do kind of look like Ryan Fitzpatrick a little bit. Quite sure you've heard that a few times. So
fat Conor McGregor, I hear that all the time too.
Huh? Less douchey, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Like fat Conor McGregor. Yeah, I hear that.
All right. That's awesome. All right, man. Well, look, I'll get all these things out here. I'm definitely intrigued with what you're putting out there too. The interesting people. I'm curious about that. I want to take a gander at the funeral deal there.
Absolutely. It's an audio only. I didn't do video on that. I like doing documentary style stuff, but this one was more, I just wanted people to be able to sit with it and listen to it. So
cool, man. Listen, once again, I appreciate you, and thanks a lot, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Rich.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.